Have you ever played a game or watched a movie and when it seems like it's about to end, it just keeps going with more? When it seems like it should end at the most exciting point at the entertainment medium, but just keeps going because every tiny plot point hasn't wrapped up, so it just piles ending after ending on you? Return of the King is the prime example of consecutive ending, in that it doesn't end! Yeah, that's not exactly what I'm talking about for this video. The ones I have in mind are done a little better. To me, a consecutive ending is similar to multiple endings, but as opposed to being the result of all your choices in the game coming together to hopefully give you a satisfying and personal end to the game, or choosing your favorite color to determine the fate of 3 games of build-up, these multiple endings build in each other in some way. They can be definitive, while also incentivizing the player to view the other endings. I have 3 examples of this that I think exemplify this perfectly. And obviously, since I'm talking about endings, I feel that the spoiler warning is obvious, but just in case. So the first example I want to show how good consecutive endings can be to incentivize more time spent playing the game to see all the endings, we go to Bloodborne. Throughout the game, while you're having fun killing things in one of the best games ever made, you're definitely questioning what is going on and hope that the ending will explain everything. It's a Souls game, so of course it won't, and just raises more questions, but being consecutive does keep the intrigue. Unlike Dark Souls 1, where there are 2 endings and they boil down to whether you like having the lights on or prefer dark mode, each ending in Bloodborne not only gives you a new boss, but makes you want to see what the other endings are due to little teases that they give off. So let me take you through it. For the first ending, Murgo's Wet Nurse is technically the final boss you'll face, and in this regard it's disappointing. But that's where the endings come in. So you get to the final area in the Hunter's Dream, and see Gehrman waiting for you at the base of a giant tree. Gehrman has been a bit of a mentor to you throughout the journey. And by mentor, I mean he gives you information early on, and disappears for a long time, and only shows up once in a while. Obi-Wan is quaking in his boots. Anyway, so the night is near its end, and he gives you 2 options. Submit your life and be freed from the hunt forever, or refuse. We're gonna go with the submitting our life first, and... Wait, that bastard could stand this whole time? He's got a weapon?! Wait, no, don't kill me yet! Wouldn't you be intrigued to know more about that? The fact that he was hauling out on you and could stand and possibly even fight? It's good incentive to play the game again to see what that was about. Okay, so let's try that again and choose refuse this time.
Dear, oh dear. What was it? The hunt? The blood? Or the horrible dream? Oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's standing on his own and has a weapon. Your curiosity of seeing what was up with that leads to a new final boss and one of the best final bosses ever.
It always comes down to the hunter's helper to clean up after these sorts of messes. Tonight, Gehrman joins the hunt.
I would like to do a breakdown, but that's not the focus of this video. I do have an older video that goes a bit more into that, so watch that if you can stomach it. Anyway, so you beat him, and you have to wonder what comes after this. Oh, that does. Neat. Yeah, this thing comes down and gives you the mother of all hugs. What does this particular hug do? You're now the new host of the Hunter's Dream, and you have to lead the next hunters that come your way as the cycle continues. Bet you're curious what that monster was about, right? Well, you need to actually do more than just select an ending to figure out, but let's just move on and see what that was all about. So you do what you gotta do, you defeat Gehrman, and now when the Moon Presence tries to hug you, it gets blown back and a boss battle ensues. The boss has an interesting design, but the fight isn't really the hardest thing in the world. Anyway, so you beat it, and you are taking your Splatoon 3 audition a little too far. Yeah, this doesn't have a lead into another ending, but it could give some ideas to where a hypothetical sequel could go. Or not. Who knows. So for Bloodborne, Each ending has some intriguing things added on top of each other in order to incentivize playing again. You go from seeing this handicapped character revealing himself to be handy-capable, to then seeing this monster swoop down to you out of nowhere, then finding out what happens after all of that. However, each ending also works perfectly fine on its own. If you submit your life, you are free from the dream and can live a more normal life. You could defeat Gehrman, but not have all the chords, showing that the cycle will continue with you as the new host of the dream. And finally, the last ending has you break the cycle and become a new great one. Each ending works on its own and as build-up for the next ending. The next example I have is Nier Automata. How both Nier games handle their playthroughs and endings aren't done in a traditional way to begin with, so let me quickly go over the general gist of how they work before explaining how Automata's way of handling things is great. In the Nier games, you have different routes that go in alphabetical order. Route A is your typical first playthrough. You learn of the world, characters, story, and gameplay that you would do in any other game. Once you reach the end, or ending A, the game will tell you to play again to learn more about the game, which becomes Route B. That's fine, but the first Nier makes this a tedious and arduous task compared to how streamlined Nier Automata handles it. Your first playthrough is fairly standard, but once you beat it, you are told to play through again to see the game from a new perspective. Now when you go through the game, you get additional cutscenes and in-game dialogue that really change the context for the game and paints everything in a new light. It's great, but after you beat ending B, you wanting to play through the rest of the routes is more just going through the motions than having good teases or incentives to do so. Route C is identical to B, with the only difference being the final boss and ending being different. And to even get to Route C, you need to acquire all weapons in the game, so if you didn't know that prior and may have sold your weapons for whatever reason, you're completely shit out of luck. The first two playthroughs are great, but the game doesn't really do much to justify going through the rest of the times you have to. Endings C and D are based off a choice at the very end of the game, so the only real incentive to play through the exact same playthrough again with zero differences is pure curiosity of the final ending. The game itself doesn't bring much intrigue to keep playing other than, do this and you may see something. Particularly egregious in the recent remaster, where there is a new ending added after ending D, and no hint that's even in the game. No little breadcrumbs for you to seek it out. If you don't know about it ahead of time, you may just assume that the game ends at ending D like the original. You'd only know if you enjoy the game enough to start playing a completely new game again, and just happen to stumble into it. Or looked it up online, which sucks, because Route E is really great. But the game doesn't incentivize you to seek it out at all. Sorry for the weird rant against Nier before going into Automata, but I feel it is needed to explain how its sequel does the concept way better, and to let out some steam from recently finishing one of the most tedious games I've ever played. Now, for Automata proper, not only does it handle its multiple playthroughs better, each ending incentivizes you to keep playing in a great way. Again, Route A is your typical first playthrough. Once you beat it, the game tells you to play it through a second time to see a different perspective. Yes, you do play through the same game you just played with different or additional cutscenes, but you also play as a different character with a different playstyle, so the game feels more unique than just playing through the game again with some new info. However, what's different this time isn't playing through the game you just played twice, 2 more times with no differences. At first, I thought that it would follow Serious Edition, and maybe we would play through the game from A2's perspective, seeing as how she's barely around for the main 2 playthroughs. Instead, it piques player interest by showing footage from the game that you haven't seen prior. Essentially, you get a trailer for the second half of the game, which looks to be completely different. And now knowing how endings in the game works, seeing them show that there are 2 endings makes you want to see what they're about. Not only that, to keep up variety, you switch back and forth between 2 different playstyles, and you are essentially playing through 2 different routes at once, as opposed to having to play through the second half twice. Once you get to the end, basic human curiosity is your main motivation to see the other ending you may have missed. Thankfully, you unlock a chapter select so you can just jump right to the other ending immediately. Thank Christ, what a godsend! Not only that, but whether you obtain ending C or D first, once you get to the other ending, it immediately goes into ending E. So the game builds on each ending by not only telling you to play more, but just through general curiosity. You play through the game once and are told to play again. You do that, but see a trailer and the tease of new endings to incentivize you to find out more, and you can jump into the final 2 endings fast with no fluff. Each facet of the endings are made to make you keep playing to find out more through how it teases each ending. The final example I have is Dragon's Dogma. This is the only game I can think of where you can get every ending in the game on your first playthrough. Let me explain. As much as I would like to go over the whole plot to give more context, this video would end up being too long and it'd probably just be me gushing about the game. So if you don't know the context, this part isn't going to help. In any case, like I said before, each ending can actually be achieved in your first playthrough, because while the game does make it look like an ending, credits and all, it will treat each ending like a game over, allowing you to try again. Most of the endings also expand on the lore and world building, so you can get some good explanations for certain aspects of the game. Sure, it might cheapen the choices knowing that they only allow for one real ending, but I find it too cool to care. So you finally come face to face with the dragon, and he actually gives you the choice to walk away from the fight. And if you do decide to walk away, you become the new Duke, explaining that the Duke was also once an Arisen, and lied about killing the dragon to gain a seat of power. It explains something so crucial with little to no dialogue, and it is great for doing that. But yeah, you get that ending and then get a game over. So you refuse the dragon's offer and now treated to the best boss in the game, and one of the best boss fights ever in my opinion. Now, it's going to take some time to get to the other endings as you have a whole post-game in between beating the dragon and the real credits, so let's skip ahead to all of that. So, once you fully complete the challenges in the Abyss, you get to meet the Seneschal? I'll just say God. So you meet God, and they have this whole speech about what it means to live and to fight for a reason to live, but at one point, they give you an option: to continue on your quest or turn around and live a happy end. If you choose the happy life, you get a happy life. You go back to your starting village to live out your life, and God waits for the next Arisen as the cycle is never ending. This is the happiest ending in the game, folks. Anyway, if you continue on, you actually see who God is. And it's the Arisen you played in the tutorial. The final boss is another Arisen, and it's really easy and not as cool as Grigory, but whatever. Speaking of the dragon, if you die in this fight, it replaces the first cutscene of the game, which is the dragon falling out of the sky, explaining that the dragon is an Arisen who failed to defeat God, and is now tasked with finding the next Arisen. When you beat God, you don't technically get an ending. You sit on the chair and you end up back in your village in a playable form, but you're now invisible. This shows how lonely it is to be God, observing everything in the known world, but forever unable to interact with it, and must forever live in a vast, unending void until the next Arisen comes and hopefully puts you out of your misery and takes the throne for themselves. So the logical thing to do is commit suicide, which gets you your canon ending, and no, I'm not joking. You and your main pawn plummet to the ground, and you wake up on the beach in your hometown, but your pawn is inhabiting your body instead. Something about how you died and your connection to your pawn was so strong that you two technically fused or something. I don't know, it doesn't make sense. But that's your ending. It can actually be altered a bit based on who your main love interest is. They have a small speech, and the game ends. Not the coolest thing, but at least the cycle is broken, right? So like I stated, each ending builds on some aspect of the character's lore or world, and all of it can be done in your first run. It's fascinating to experience. Endings like these are really cool. I love how endings like these can tease you into playing more of the game, or build up intrigue for what the rest of the game holds, or just expand and explain things more. It's something cool that I wish more games did. That being said, as much as I like how endings like these work, I don't think consecutive endings should take the place of traditional multiple or choice-based endings. Doing consecutive endings too often would cheapen how cool and unique they can be, for one thing. The personal uniqueness of having your own ending tailored to your choices is something that makes choice-based endings so personalized for each player, and leaves a lasting impact, something that consecutive endings just can't really do as well. I do want to see more games with consecutive endings like these games, but not so much that it ruins their charm. Go with what works for the game you're making. Just make sure that your ending is actually good first before having more.
However, the possibility of a different future also exists. A future is not given to you. It is something you must take for yourself.
When it seems like it should end at the most exciting point at the entertainment, that's all I'll focus on. I just fucking started. To me, a consecutive ending is similar to multiple endings, but as opposed to being the result of all your choices in the game coming together to hopefully give you a satisfying ending and personal end to the game, or choosing your favorite color Now, for Automata proper, not only does it handle its multiplayer. Yeah, not only does it handle its multiplayer better. Oh my god, okay. Oh boy. Yeah, that's Nier Automata multiplayer, that's Babylon's Fall. And that's nobody wanted multiplayer for Nier. So, let me try this again. Anyway, if you continue on, you actually see who God is. And it's the Arisen you played. Let me see if I can talk about this fast and you still understand. Anyway, if you continue on, you actually see the gods. The first thing you play in the tutorial. Final boss, another Arisen. It's really easy and it's not cool, but whatever. Speaking of the dragon, if you die in the fight, you really plays the first cutscene in the game, which the dragon falls out of the sky. Explain that the dragon is a Arisen who failed to defeat God. Now it's tasked with fighting the next Arisen. Why the fuck was it better when I was talking way too fast to understand? Why is it when I try to talk slowly so people can understand me, I keep messing up? But when I do motor mouth, all of a sudden I read through the whole thing flawlessly. What the fuck?